Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of, hey, I just dropped a button. Another episode of City Chatter. Sorry, breaking stuff. I'm Public Information Officer John Bernstrom with the City of Grand Forks, and thank you for joining us for another episode of our podcast. Joined this week by City Council President Dana Sande. Dana, thank you for being here.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate the invite. There's nowhere I'd rather be right now.
Exactly. I appreciate the enthusiasm. I appreciate that. So let's get right into it. Council meeting on Monday. There was a
No. How's your day going?
Oh, we'll get to that later.
Okay,
we'll
right.
get to that later.
Okay.
We'll get to
Sounds
that later.
good.
Yeah. Dana,
Yep.
how's your day going, Dana?
Yeah, pretty good. I spent an hour on the radio earlier today getting chastised about billboards and signs and our sign code. So it'd be great if we could start talking about that, John.
Should we start with signs?
Yeah, that'd be good. Let's do it.
Okay, but let's do it this way. Can you talk about, on Monday, there was a large discussion about billboards, and there's kind of two aspects to it. Can you talk about first the Park District looking for a variance?
Yep.
And it got shot down, but why they had to come for a variance? Can you talk about that? Why the variance was needed there?
So it's interesting. I've been visiting with Mike Opp from Oxford Realty. Mike, who made the donation to the Park District for the naming rights of the new ball field, which is great. He's donated a $500,000 to the Park District, right? It's a great investment in our community. Mike loves baseball. He loves kids. He's got great kids himself. Mike was interested in getting the monument sign installed out at Apollo Park. The issue is the sign that they want to erect does not meet the Grand Forks sign code. It's almost twice the size in terms of square footage as what's allowed on that piece of property. Now, one can argue the other three corners are zoned differently than that corner. And the sign that they want to put out would meet the sign code requirements for the zoning of the other three corners.
Sure.
So logically, does it make sense that we would approve that sign? Sure, it does. Will we eventually approve that sign? Most likely, yes. I don't see any reason why people wouldn't support having a nice new sign for whatever it is, Oxford Ball Field or whatever they want to call it.
Whatever the title
right?
is. Yeah.
Whatever it is. Issue for me is there are lots of signs that are on that property less than 100 yards from where this sign is going to go that don't currently meet the city sign code.
Sure.
And so we have no other way to encourage the property owners to meet the current sign code other than hold up them putting another sign out on their property. So I'm not trying to be difficult, and I'm not trying to say that the Park District is up to something or whatever, right? I always come off wrong because I speak first and then I think later. Fact of the matter is the Park District has a couple dozen signs that don't meet the city sign code that are right there, and they know about it. It's not like Monday night was the first time that it became public that they have signs that don't meet the sign code. We've been talking about it personally, professionally, behind closed doors, on the phone, you name it. It's been talked about over and over again. Fact is, they haven't done anything about it. In my opinion, they should be held to the same standard as any other business owner in our community. It's just because they're a taxing political entity in our community doesn't mean that they shouldn't follow the city laws. So I just like to see them clean it up. I'm sure they're going to. I don't know when. I haven't heard anything. It's Wednesday afternoon, so 36 hours has gone by since it came up on Monday night. I haven't heard anything. I don't know if Mr. Baysflug has heard anything yet either. But I know some of the folks from the Park District have been on vacation. I know that they have good intentions, so I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Okay. The second sign issue that came up on Monday was talking about billboards. We have our billboard code is tied to our population. We got our official census numbers in 21, which then allowed for, I believe it's an 11 additional billboards per code.
So. Yep, per code. Every 566 new residents means another billboard.
Yep. So there's been a rush of billboards, that technology is changing. Can you just talk about that discussion? There was a postponement of an approval there, pending taking a look at that code. What are you hoping to find in taking a look at the code that you guys directed Mr. Gosted to do?
Well, ultimately, I'd like Mr. Gosted to come back and tell me that it's okay for us to eliminate, not only put a moratorium on putting out new billboards, but also put in some sort of a timeline for billboards to be removed. Because the billboards, I believe the purpose for a billboard, as was initially designed, is to pull people into a community off a highway. It's not.
Sure.
It's not meant for local advertising on your main strip in your downtown. That wasn't the purpose of a billboard in the first place. And I think that the concept of how we use billboards and why they're being used and where they're being placed has completely changed and isn't being done with their original intent. And so, I for one don't see any need to have billboards, electronic or otherwise, in our community. We have all sorts of sign opportunities for people to have signs on their properties. We don't need to have big billboards for some for-profit organization to sell advertising for the people that and businesses that are already here in our community. So again, that's just my opinion. People might disagree. People might love the electronic signs. That's fine. You're all welcome to your opinion. I just don't think they're necessary. I would like to see, and I'm hoping that, again, that the city attorney says that we can phase them out over time, that the billboard companies that made the financial investment can get their investment back in a reasonable amount of profit, and then can remove those signs.
And then I think that's something important too. The technology of billboards has changed out, say what, within the past decade immensely. They're now different shapes. They're different, everything.
Yeah, they're running up and down. It's they're longer, they're narrower. The aspect ratio is different. It's weird. Well, weird. It's nothing that we've seen in the past. You know, the prior to 10 years ago or 15 years ago, the technology's changed so much with LEDs and you name it. They can broadcast brighter and faster, and they do have to follow our sign limitations, the limitations that we provided on how fast they can change messaging. But either way, they certainly are different than the billboard of old.
Yes, that's for sure. And even recently, I remember the discussion of planning and zoning. Those vertical billboard, when it first came, you're looking at a drawing, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, it's hard to picture it. And then you see it up, and you're like, oh, now I see it.
Sure.
With all this new stuff, sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around it until you actually see it up.
Well, I didn't know until Monday. I literally learned this on Monday that they can put an electronic sign as long as they meet the zoning and the sign code. They can put a billboard anywhere in town without authorization of the city council anytime they want.
Sure, as long as they're within city code.
Yeah, as long as they have the license for a billboard, they can put it out on Gateway Drive. The only place they need approval is on South Washington Street, which is bizarre to me. I don't know why it came down to that. I think people in history they knew that South Washington was where the masses of the drivers were, and so they wanted to pack them in there.
Sure.
So some city council made that designation, but like the electronic sign that's gone now at the bottom of Demers Avenue up and over the overpass.
Sure.
There was no discussion about that electronic billboard at city council at all. I had no idea it was going in there until it was up. The fact is, that organization, that electronic billboard company, they went to Wayland's Moving and Storage because Wayland's owned the rights to the billboard that was there. The static billboard. They bought the rights to the billboard from Wayland's, tore Wayland's down, and put their electronic one up. It's perfectly legal, but I completely disagree with it.
Sure, it's not an additional sign.
Right.
It's not all the things that are in the code.
Right. They checked all the boxes. I just disagree. I don't think there should be a big electronic billboard right as you come up and over that's the grand entrance to our downtown.
Yeah.
And the city of Grand Forks has no control over what people are seeing
Right.
when they come into our community.
Right. All right. Well, no, that's okay. That's enough sign talk. You've had enough of that today.
Yeah, it's good
so
stuff.
let's go into another interesting one. We're in the middle of the budget a little bit. Preliminary budget has been approved.
Yep.
Final budget is set to be approved on September 18th. That's the public hearing.
Yep.
That's the public hearing. As a city council member, between preliminary approval and final approval, how much work are you doing on the budget working with staff right now?
None.
None. Okay.
None at all. Because, personally, myself, I do all the heavy lifting prior to preliminary approval. Ultimately, once we give preliminary approval, in my opinion, it means that I'm prepared to vote yes on it.
Sure.
And I want to make sure for myself that if I'm going to be prepared to vote yes on it at final, it better be right the first time.
Sure.
And so the mayor, myself, Marine Store said, finance, HR, you can ask them. I ask a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
I spend a lot of time going through things. It's often they'll get emails from me in the middle of the night because of things I've been thinking about, and they're very good. We are so fortunate as a community and as a council to have such good city employees in leadership positions that care about our community, and they. This is going to probably sound cliche. They believe in transparency and honesty, and so they'll often tell me things that I don't want to hear or that I don't like.
Sure.
But it's because it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's trying to sugarcoat things. Nobody's trying to frame things in a way that will lead me to an answer that they want, because they know I believe they know I see through that, but also I believe they're really good people and that they want us all to mutually come to a conclusion where we're all happy. And so prior to preliminary approval, spent a lot of time talking, again, Brett Weber and I spent a lot of time talking about it. I think people know, especially the council members know, and city staff, I spent a lot of time poring over the budget binder. And I probably dissect it more than I need to.
It's a big binder.
Well, but somebody has to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not that the other council members don't put in time, but I've done it now 13 times.
Mm-hmm.
I know what to look for, and I know I'm probably more efficient at it than any of the other
Sure.
council members. So I believe they've come to, new council members, I'll give them, but like Brett and Ken, I believe that they know that I do a good job.
Sure.
And so they probably don't have to spend as much time with the binder as I do. They spend their time thinking about other specific items that they want to make sure get into the budget and are framed in the right way. Ken with infrastructure and whatever, and Brett with both infrastructure, but also human needs, human resources, our employees, those sorts of things.
Right.
So, and that's how we end up, we become a pretty good team by making sure that, I feel like my role is making sure that the numbers in the budget add up and they're right, and that there isn't anything specific that we've missed, and those two make sure that we've hit all the big the big things for the community. So I think it works out pretty well. And by the time we got to preliminary approval, I was feeling pretty comfortable. The mayor had a couple changes that he wanted to make the last day, and I had a couple changes, and otherwise everybody was fine with it. So
I will say this as a staff member, and you're talking budget and working. I very much appreciate as council members come to us on a Wednesday or a Thursday. I have this question. There have been council members in the past. I can't speak to this council. Still learning some, the amendments on the floor.
right,
and it's maybe a good idea. I don't know at this point, but you're voting in 10 seconds or whatever.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, go back in time. I served 6 years with Councilmember Bierke, like Terry. I really do. I've always said that I like him. Terry and I were on the same side
on a lot of things. I know.
95% of the time. But the coming to the council meetings and coming in with 27 amendments when you prior to discussing any of them with anybody, it's impossible to get support for things. I mean, the way the council should work is compromise. You know, that's the way our federal government can't seem to get it done. At the local level, we have to compromise with one another, which means we have to be communicating and working together, trying to, you know, if, you know, whomever, if Rebecca wants something on the north end and and Brett wants something on the south end or Kyle, and we trying to work it out so that everybody can win rather, you know, it shouldn't be a zero-sum game. So, I think, being prepared in advance and making those phone calls. Like, I don't even like going into a council meeting, just a regular council meeting there should never be an aha or a gotcha moment because the city staff don't deserve that, right? So I'll email and I'll let people know in advance, even if they don't want to hear what I'm going to say. I let them know this is the path I'm going down.
I'm pulling this item for this reason.
Right. Yeah. So that they're so at least they can be prepared, and then there's not any, you know, hard feelings. I don't like, and I have had situations where there have been hard feelings based upon things that I've said at meetings with city staff, and unfortunately those things happen, and I'm the first one to pick up the phone and call and say I'm sorry, right? Because I don't mind. I've been wrong lots of times. I certainly recognize that, and when I'm wrong, I'm happy to take the lumps for it.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. No problem. Speaking, you've brought up a couple of times. You've been on the council. You said you're 13.
13. Yeah.
13. So
I'm in year 14.
From first elected to council to now city council president. I mean, that's how different from those first couple of council meetings you're on to the meetings now. How much do you feel you've grown as a council member?
Oh, I'm nothing the way I was when I first started. I was very fortunate. You know, we had some very strong community leaders when I was first elected. Elliot Glassheim, Hal Gershman, Doug Christensen, Kurt Kroon, Terry Bierke were on with me, and when I got elected with Tyrone Grandstrand. Tyrone only lasted...
That was your first election year? Okay.
He did 2010. Tyrone only made it one term, but I think he moved out of town.
Yeah, I don't think he lives in town anymore. Yeah,
right.
It happens.
I think he's in the planning department in Fargo, actually. I've heard he's doing pretty well. I haven't spoken to him, but I heard he's doing pretty good for their community. So... and which he knows the ins and outs of government. So, so I spent a lot of time listening. You know, most people when they run for public office, you know, I feel like they're doing it for one of two reasons. They're either doing it for personal gain, or they're doing it because they're mad about something. And I was angry at the time, and I was angry about the housing, the flood lots that were for sale in our community. I tried to buy a couple flood lots, and Mr. Gershman, who's a very good friend of mine, got in my way of buying a lot because I wanted to build a house, and I was pissed off, and I told him I was pissed, and I was going to run for council and fix the mess that they created, and so I did. And the first thing that they did was put me on the committee, and we had gone 3 years. And had sold like 4 lots. And then in the next year and a half, we sold like 40 and just blew them out. And because it made no sense. We were putting so many governmental regulations on people's ability to buy the lots that the city was sitting on. It made no sense to me. So anyway, I think all of those areas of town, El Monte and Chestnut and down by 15th Avenue South, they've all filled in great.
Yeah.
The houses look great. People got a good deal on the lot. The city got the houses back on the tax roll. I think it worked out. I think if I hadn't run, they'd still be selling those lots. Anyway, so I ran because I was angry, and so when I was at the council meetings, because in my mind I was there for one topic, although I read all the information, was paying attention, and I had been on planning and zoning, so I understood a lot of the concepts that were going on. There were still a lot of things that I had no idea what they were talking about. And when it came to city code, I knew nothing. And so sitting next to Doug Christensen, the attorney that had copies book binders of the city code sitting in front of him. And during meetings, he would pull out the city code and he'd go to the section and he'd talk about it. I mostly kept my mouth shut and listened, and I learned an incredible amount from those gentlemen. Mr. Christensen is a great man. I really, really like Doug. He's a good friend, and he helped me so much. Of course, Kurt did too. So, and Elliot and I didn't get along so well, but I really liked him too.
So you pivot that to all these people that you learn from, listen to. They're all listening to you now. A new person gets elected as now a veteran council member. Do you feel some obligation? Do you reach out? What do you do?
It's hard to believe that people are looking to me. I really appreciate that, which I know it's true, but it's an ominous feeling. I do reach out. I try to be helpful. I try to when the two new council members were elected a year ago, I spent a lot of time, and they know my phone is always available. I'm always available for a phone call if they have questions. I don't spend a lot of time calling people. Here we are, I'm in my 14th year. I've never asked anyone to vote with me on any topic. I've never done that.
Okay.
And I won't. Prior to my becoming council president, I had been asked many times to get on board and vote a certain way. And it bugged me because I knew that I was elected the same way everybody else was. And I was there to represent my constituents, and I didn't like the fact that that I was being forcefully asked to vote in a certain way or another, right? And so it bugged me. So I go out of my way to tell everyone that their vote is the same as my vote. Everyone's welcome to their opinion, and it's totally okay if we disagree on any topic. I will call people if there's something going on. I will call people and let them know my opinion and tell them this is why I'm going to vote this way.
Sure.
But then I say you're welcome to vote any way you want to, right? I have no, and I don't have any hard feelings. There have been lots of topics where I've been outvoted by the majority, and it doesn't bother me because I certainly know enough to know that I don't know everything. I'm just a person. Sometimes I feel like, especially when I hear people speak negatively about council members or the mayor, I feel like they think we're different than they are. We all live here. We're not full-time professional politicians. I've got a job, and Rebecca's got a job, and you name it.
Everyone in that council has a job.
We all go. I run into people at the grocery store, and it's like they're surprised to see me at Hugo's. Like, why would you be surprised, right? And I ran into a gentleman at Menards yesterday, and he was all, "Hey, Dana."
That's right.
Right? I mean, it's great, and I'm glad that people come up to me and say hello. But we're just normal people doing whatever we do. So, I think as a group, this group is very good. Again, my phone is always open. I know there's lots of phone calls that happen. I talk to Danny a lot. I talk to Kyle a lot. I talk to. With the exception of Ken, I talk to all the council members a lot because we have a lot of things going on. And he's busy working his job, and he's got other things on his mind right now, and that's fine too.
Yeah. Being on council this long, only two mayors, Mayor Brown, Mayor Wojcinski.
You bet.
All of us staff went through that. We're just like, we know we've only worked. A lot of us had only worked for one mayor.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
How was that as a council president with that? Because there's a transition. We're all feeling each other out.
Oh yeah.
Right. How did that go? We were in the middle of COVID. There was so much going on. How did that go from your end? And I don't want you to get in trouble, but or anyone in trouble. How'd that go for you?
No, I think the mayor would. I think, we should be honest. The transition was miserable. It really was. It was horrible. But just because we don't, I don't know, hubris, my hubris, the mayor's hubris, whatever. It was new city attorney. It was all sorts of change.
And again, middle of COVID.
Yeah, and I like things the way I like things, and the Mayor Brown and I had a very good understanding. And so when the new mayor comes in and all of a sudden he's in the office 40 hours a week, and he's more like a city employee than he is the mayor in terms of the amount of time that he's putting in. It was a very strange dynamic, and we didn't get along. I mean, that's the fact is, for, I don't know, 6-8 months, we didn't get along really very well at all. And I think for the most part we were civil, and we tried and we listened, but I mean, the mayor, he'll probably laugh about it today. There was a time when one of the it was after a council meeting, one of the custodians actually came, poked their head into his office and asked if they should call the police because there was so much yelling going on. Well, I mean, I laugh about it now because the mayor and I get along great. And, we've got a great understanding now. And I understand, his motivations. And I've recognized, nobody can say that he doesn't put in the work.
Nobody can say that. No.
There are things that he and I disagree on, and we fundamentally disagree on them. But the man works. He puts in, and you can tell that his heart is in our community. And I know he was raised in the Minneapolis area, but he's a Grand Forks guy. There is no doubt about it. And not everybody that's in our community that is born here is a Grand Forks person, but he definitely is. And so that's why, like in this budget cycle, when he's making these significant changes to how we're utilizing our economic development funds, for example, he was elected by the people. The guy puts in the work. He has sound fundamentals. He works with finance to understand the financial implications. And so he's the mayor, and he's elected by all of the people in our community who voted, not just 1/7 like I am, which is why, okay, if that's the direction the mayor wants to go, I'll get on board. I don't necessarily think it's not my idea, and it's certainly, sorry.
Oh, you're popping out?
There you go. I got it back on.
There you go.
It's not necessarily what I would have done, but it's a bold strategy, and bold is bold. Change is hard, right? I'm an old dog. Change is hard. But I think the mayor's got some good points and some good ideas, and so I'm on board. So the transition was very difficult. Is it good today? This is as good as it's been. It really is. And our new city attorney, I really liked Howard Swanson. I thought Howard was an exceptional city attorney. I really do. I think Dan Gosted is also an exceptional city attorney. He is such a nice guy, and he always answers the phone. And he's grown into his role too. I think since he started, I used to get very attorney-like responses from him. And
like you're in a courtroom.
Yeah. And so it's less of that now and more of a, here's the law, here's how it could apply, and here's kind of what I think, and here are some options for you. Right? So he's not telling us what we should do. He does a really good job of providing perhaps a more soft touch on the legal side.
Sure. No, that's great insight.
Yeah. So it's been good.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. So your mother was on the city council. You're on the city council. Your wife is on planning and zoning. It's a lot of public service in a household. Have you all? Is this something that's always been in your mind as far as being in public service in some component? I'm just thinking of just who you've been around growing up and becoming Dana.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I had always had that inkling. I know that my mom, love her, God rest her soul. My mom was a limousine liberal. Grew up in a relatively wealthy family on the East Coast and went to private college for women. And my dad, on the other hand, born in Thief River Falls. Moved to Grand Forks, went to medical school in Boston. And so he's the son of a business owner who related to agriculture, very conservative side. And so the opposites, I guess, attract. They met on a blind date in Boston and in college. They disagreed on almost everything politically, almost everything. And so growing up, There was never. Well, my mom was an exceptional cook too, and they both believed in family dinner.
Oh, sure. We do in our house too. Yeah.
So every night, my brother and I had wrestling practice or football practice or whatever. They'd hold dinner. We'd eat later. Whatever. They'd work around our schedules in school. But there would always be an argument every night at our table.
I don't mean to laugh, but I can picture it.
But it's true. There were seldom a night when someone wasn't yelling at the dinner table. It's just the way it was, and it was the daily debate about national news or local news or what's going on with the county or you name it. There was always a debate at our table, and virtually always somebody angry. And so I grew up learning about both sides.
Sure.
My mom was very passionate about human rights and just taking care of people. She volunteered. My mom was a professional volunteer after after getting her going to school for history and English. She was a professional volunteer, and so she worked all over our community trying to help people. Spent a lot of time with the United Way and others, but my dad, of course, always, because my mom would always want to give, and my dad would say, "But you're not making the money."
Oh,
right. And
yeah.
so, and there was always that.
Yeah,
there was always that general fight between the two of them, and so I learned both sides, which is why I'm probably less conservative than my dad, but more conservative than my mom, and I'll try to admit or try to say that I'm kind of the best of both of them. I think I am pretty soft socially. I am. I've seen, since coming on the council, I've had such a different perspective of the value of people and seeing the things that go on in our community related to poverty and other things, which is why it's, in that case, I've become a bleeding heart, but I'm also very fiscally conservative and try to make sure that we're not spending frivolously on, I don't know, we can have that argument. The pendulum swings one way or the other, and I don't know where it should sit, right? Whether it should be a little here or a little there in terms of how we're spending our money socially and but I know that all I'm trying to do is the best I can and take care of the people in our community while trying to keep the taxes down for the taxpayers.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and thanks for cutting open that vein. Your mother would come to City Hall to pay her utility bill and come and say hi to me every time she'd. I'd see her once a month, and it was great.
Yeah, my dad's been gone for 13 years now. It's so hard to believe.
Yeah,
it's amazing where time goes.
Time goes,
and of course, my dad, he was not a volunteer, but my dad gave of his time at work, and there are a lot of people in our community that got a lot of free dental work.
Sure.
Because they needed it, and so I'm very proud of my dad for that. And he never talked about it, but if you ask other dentists in our community, my dad was the guy that they could always send somebody to take care of somebody, and if they didn't have the means, he just didn't charge them and just moving on because he didn't care. He wanted to help people.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I asked if I could talk about this in an email back and forth we had, and I hope it's okay. You've had several meetings recently where you've been joined remotely, and you're obviously in a car going somewhere. You've also had a few meetings where you're coming in with an eye patch.
Eye patch or goggles or you name it.
So if you don't mind me asking, one, is everything okay? And two, what happened?
Yeah, so everything's okay. During COVID, when we were in shutdown or lockdown, they were doing, you could still pick up food drive-through.
Sure.
And so I was sent on a mission to go grab some grub for the team, and I'm heading east on 17th, and I felt like I had something in my eye, my left eye, so I went and rubbed it, and then I recognized that I couldn't see with my right eye. Oh. And so I ended up reaching out to an eye doctor friend who he got me in the next day, and they recognized that I have, wow, weird emotional feeling right there. They recognized that I have glaucoma. Oh. And unfortunately, at that point, I had already lost about 50% of the vision in my right eye, and I'm down to about 40% now. But I also have glaucoma in my left eye. And so I've spent a couple years. I had spent a couple years battling using eye drops, trying to control pressure. Eventually, my local ophthalmologist referred me to Mayo. So when I got to Mayo, and I can't forget, glaucoma is hereditary. I had no idea glaucoma was hereditary. If your parents or grandparents have glaucoma, you need to get annual eye exams. The issue the reason I didn't know is the vision in my left eye is 20/10. I can see, I'm not nearsighted or farsighted. I can read up close. I can read out here. I have no problems. My left eye compensates for my right. I had no idea.
You had no idea.
I had no idea that I'd been losing my vision. And so it'd been almost 10 years since I'd had an eye exam.
Sure.
Because why? My vision's perfect.
Right. Don't have headaches, don't have, right?
No problem. So anyway, I've been seeing boy genius at Mayo Clinic, Dr. Gavin Roddy, who over the 4th of July week was the keynote speaker at the World Glaucoma Conference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's just a gem, a real nice guy. Homeschools 5 kids, 36 years old.
Right. Smarter than the room combined.
Yes, yeah. So one wonder boy. And he's such a good guy and so caring. But the first time I saw him, he told me my glaucoma's raging out of control. He said, well, you need surgery today. And so that was about a year ago now. It's very hard to get on their surgical schedule. So December 6th, I had surgery. They did what's called a trabeculectomy to my right eye. They put a hole in the top of your eye. Because of all of the other treatments, they're trying to relieve the pressure in your eye.
Yeah, that's the whole thing with glaucoma.
It's pressure. And so you're naturally supposed to have pores in I'll call them pores, little holes in the back of your eye
that relieve that pressure.
To relieve the pressure. So I'd been through the lasers, shooting lasers through the back of my eye. You name it, I've had it done a few times. Nothing's working in the right eye. So trabeculectomy, they cut the hole in the top of my eye. They cut 3 sides of a square and they crinkle it back and then they sew the sides. So you should have a permanent slit where the fluid can flow out, and then they measure your pressures over time. And if they need to, they can cut a suture to open that up
to make it bigger. Sure. Okay.
Right. So unfortunately, the average age of a person that gets a trabeculectomy is 75 years old, right? I'm 50 years old, and so my body heals too well.
So it healed up.
It's trying to heal, so they're giving me shots in the eye of a fluid that's supposed to keep it from healing over. Well, it kept healing so many times that the shots in the eye actually killed the tissue that goes over the flap.
Oh, okay.
And so I had to have the surgery done again. So I had it done December 6th, and then I had it done again June 6th, because they had to cut out all that tissue and sew it all back together. And of course, I'm having the same problem now. I'm healing too well. So I've been shot in the eye every week.
Oof.
But now they're delivering the shots from different, the doctor seems to think it's going okay and everything looks good. I have another appointment in Rochester on Friday, and that will be my 21st appointment since December 6th.
That's a lot of miles.
Yeah.
700
miles, it's 400 miles from Grand Forks to Rochester.
You're learning every pit stop along the way.
Yeah, you bet. Even the people in the gas stations know me by name.
Yep. To tell the truth to those listening, I knew I had no idea to that extent. I asked the question, hey, can we talk about it? Again, it was at council meetings. It was obvious. Dana, I appreciate that. I mean, opening that up, that's...
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I'm apparently my threshold for torture has gotten pretty high because of all this. So the second time I had the surgery, I did it with just local.
Sure.
the first time they gave me some sedative, but you don't feel super well. And then they tell you can't, because he's having surgery at 7:00 in the morning and you have to stay overnight because they have to see you the next day and the day after that and 2 days after that. And so the first time they tell me, we're going to give you a sedative and then you can't have anything to drink tonight. And I say, well, can you go light on the sedative? Well, because we're down, I want to have a glass of wine.
Exactly.
We're in Rochester. And so the second time I just said, just do it with local. So that time they actually stuck a needle all the way through my eyeball into my optic nerve. And then a little local on top. And so I'm essentially there having not having a conversation. Sure. But it was kind of funny because one of the nurses sneezed and I said, bless you. And everyone in the room erupted laughing because they assumed, everybody else is always out. Right? So anyway, it's been quite a road, but I'm doing okay.
You look good.
Well, the worst thing that happens is I 100% lose the vision in my right eye. I don't have a whole lot of vision in my right eye anyway, and I don't even notice that I don't notice it.
You don't notice it.
I don't even notice it.
That's
right.
That's amazing.
So amazing. There are days when I've thought, well, an ice cream scoop would be better than all that's going on. But whatever, we'll keep plugging away.
All right, Dana. Unless you got something to add, this is a great conversation. I appreciate it. I've been on city staff for 17 years. We almost match up time wise.
Yep.
I've always had a good time communicating with you. We don't always agree. We've had back and forth texting, and I'm like, Dana, I think you're wrong. We'll talk about this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Here we are. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just a guy that gets out of bed and tries to do the best I can. So appreciate it, John. And really appreciate everything you do for our community as well as all the rest of the city staff, even the ones that don't like me. I know that you're working hard and I really appreciate all the efforts that everyone puts in. It's the heart of our community. It's what makes us great.
Yeah. All right. Dana Sande, Ward 6 City Council President, joining us here for this episode of the City Chatter Podcast. Thank you, Dana. Just a couple of quick notes. School starts in a week. Be careful around schools. And they're also on 32nd. They're going to mill and overlay that thing next week as well. Going to go 28th and 29th. So thank you for joining us for another episode of City Chatter. Visit grandforksgov.com/podcast to see listen to all of our previous episodes. And thank you for joining us and have a good week.